right, Wilder Show podcast. Thanks for being here. I'm
Hello.
Scott. Oh, hi. I'm not you. You're always here. I'm Scott. I'm Scott. That's Lauren.
It's still nice for you to thank me to be
Well,
here.
I am always thankful that you are here.
You're welcome.
As are we all. WilderShow.com is where you find. WilderShow.com is where you find us. Podcast at WilderShow.com is how you contact us. Wilder Show podcast drops on Tuesdays and Fridays, 6 a.m. Central Time. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, elsewhere. So like, rate, follow, subscribe, and share. And we have an Instagram also. You can search and find and like and follow, and we appreciate that. Here we go.
Let's go.
The president, there's always something. We only do a podcast twice a week, but gosh, there's always something. Let me give a little thumbs up for a second, or maybe an explanation, maybe a thumbs neutral on something we've talked about before. We talked last week about the rare earth minerals. Remember that?
I do.
Rare earth minerals, or rare earth elements, I think is what it's called. Rare earth elements. Anyway, those elements like cobalt and different things that I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything from that chart that I failed in chemistry many years ago. I think cobalt is one of them. CO, as I recall.
Yeah, the elements, the chart of elements, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the chart of elements. I didn't do well in very much in the science realm. I loved advanced biology, but chemistry wasn't my bag. Anyway,
I never took chemistry.
Tough. Anyway, for me anyway, the really smart people did quite well.
I picked a major based on something that didn't.
Oh, you
I
in
didn't
college?
have to take any science for.
Oh, I was talking about high school. I mean, I was messing up in high school in chemistry.
I didn't, like I said,
Yeah.
didn't even take it in high school. We digress. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Rare earth minerals, and we talked about how the president, and there was a whole thing about Ukraine, and the president wants 50% of their rare earth minerals as rights in exchange for all that we have done for Ukraine. And I had mentioned that actually was a proposal made by Volodymyr Zelensky in Ago Times, and the president but the president's got kind of a bad rap about that. And can I explain a little bit of something?
Please.
Who is funding all the defense of Ukraine? Now, not all, but the majority funder for the defense is the United States.
Sure.
The United States is not most directly impacted by what goes on there. I mean, Europe, you could reasonably say, is the one impacted most by what happens there, because right after there you have Poland, then you have, all of a sudden you're deep into Europe. But Europe is a minority supporter in terms of dollars, a minority supporter, and yet there is an agreement for the repayment of what Europe is doing in Ukraine. So Trump looks at that and says, that doesn't make sense. Why is the minority supporter getting money back, and they're the ones most impacted by the danger that would happen if, Russia took over Ukraine? Why does the minority supporter that is impacted most get reimbursed, but the majority supporter gets nothing?
Did they just make a better deal than we did?
They did. And that you can guess who might have been president at that time. And so the president's looking at that and saying, no, that doesn't make sense. If they're getting money as a minority supporter, they're getting their money back. We're going to get our money back too. And one of the ways to do it is it's not like pay us back the cash, but give us a take of this rare earth minerals. So
Gotcha.
That's sort of a little update on that. And speaking of rare earth minerals, I saw a story and I can't find it now. So I hope it wasn't just a bogus thing. It wasn't like from some fake news organization, but it was an offer by the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, who said to Congo is in a war right now with Rwanda. And the president of Congo has said or offered the president of the United States, we will give you all of our rare earth minerals if you will come in and stop this war. Now, wouldn't that sort of make all of our men and women in the military, wouldn't it make us sort of mercenaries? I mean, I got a son that's in the service. I mean, I want him to defend America, which he does, but I don't want him to go and, listen, the president, whoever the president has cut a deal with this country, and this country it has nothing to do with us, and the country that they're at war with has nothing to do with us, but they have offered us money, basically money, to come in and win their war.
Well, okay, let me ask you.
I would be opposed to that.
Let me ask you a question that might be a dumb question. Is that what would make us mercenaries?
When you go to war for money
to do it.
Yeah, when you go to war for money, when you're just like these guys that have gone. There are men, and I guess women, but usually it's men. There are men that have signed up to go fight in Israel or in Gaza against the Gaza thing and against Hamas. And there are people and some have died, that have gone to fight for Ukraine. They're guys that, used to be in special forces or whatever, and there were contractors maybe, and they just decided, I want to go fight again. They're paid to do it. I mean, that's what mercenaries do. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't want a country to become, it's one thing if individuals decide to do that, but, to have a country basically paid, send us your military to, and I could be misinterpreting this. I don't believe I am. I don't at all mean to misrepresent it, but the concept generally I'm opposed to. I think we should only go to war or even effort to fix wars if it has something to do with us or our allies. That's it. We can't be the police of the world. We can't do that. And we daggum sure can't be doing that for pay. Well, we'd like to help you, but you don't really have a lot of rare earth minerals.
Right.
How's your cobalt? What's going on there with your cobalt? That is a bad thing, I think. Anyway, I was watching all the news shows over the weekend, and I'm just reminded Democrats have no idea why they lost.
Still.
I mean, still. It's unbelievable.
What makes you say that? What did you hear in particular?
Hakeem Jeffries was on one of the channels over the weekend, or maybe more than one, but I saw him on one. And he was asked, and all I could talk about is how the president's approval rating is so low. The president's approval rating, man, people are abandoning the president. Let me put it in perspective. The president's approval rating right now is higher than it was when he was president the first time. And the president's approval rating right now is more than twice Congressional Democrats' approval. Congressional Democrats' approval is like 21, 22%. Listen, these guys like Hakeem, they don't get it. Here's my advice, and it doesn't matter because they won't listen. They would never listen. If they listened, they would never hear. If they heard, they never would follow this good advice. Democrats should do this. Find something or two somethings that you can agree with the president. Take advantage of having supported that and suggest that if you had not done it, it would not have succeeded. And I look at the shutdown of the federal government that's coming up. I mean, Democrats don't get it. That they don't understand why they lost, and I don't care. I hope they continue for another 18, 19, 20 months to not understand why they lost, because then they'll lose or they won't have the advances they would otherwise in the midterm election. Do
you really mean it, though? Do you really mean that? Wouldn't it be better if they understood? Wouldn't it be better for our country if they understood? Is that too Pollyanna to even think that's? It seems like that kind of makes it maybe more about strategy than about governing.
Well, that's a great point, and I don't want to be I don't want to be that guy. But I would say this. I mean, if they held either of the houses of Congress, I might agree with that.
Yeah.
But they don't. So, Republicans, if they can get 3 Republicans to go to their side in the House, they get their, or 2, they get their way. And very small numbers also in the Senate. So they don't hold a House. My point is that they have no power. Bill Clinton, he was suffering from all the bad press and all the stuff going on with Bill Clinton. It looked like there was something that was going to take place. There was going to be welfare to work. Remember that? Mm-hmm. Welfare to work. That if you wanted to get welfare, you had to show good faith that you were also working. And that is not standard Democrat thought. Is he have to do this one thing to get this other thing? But what he did was he stole that topic from Republicans, and it helped him get reelected. So, and it helped him also have something else to talk about rather than blue dresses and all that stuff. So
a distraction.
Yeah, exactly. So, cut through the noise. Democrats could cut through the noise right now if they would find, and see, they won't though. They won't, because they don't like him. They don't like the whole Elon Musk thing. They don't like him on the stage with a chainsaw, but nobody's going to remember the tweets that somebody put out. In 2 years, all they're going to know is if their life is better or if it isn't. That's all they're going to know. And then they're going to figure out, well, who is responsible for that? And Democrats have an opportunity to say, we're going to come in and own some of this stuff. The prime example is felons that are in the country illegally. Boom. And you haven't heard a single thing in 1 month from Democrats saying that is absolutely something we agree with, and let's move forward. How can we work with the president to get this done? They don't do that because they don't get it. They just don't get it. The Vatican is busy, as you know.
I do.
We talked about that last week, and then, of course, all the events since then. So who knows exactly where this is going to go. We will at some point have to talk about our St. Malachi, not today, but our St. Malachi, what was it, predictions? The Nostradamus, the Catholic Nostradamus. We'll do that at some point. But anyway, that's obviously in the news, and I'm sure we'll have quite a bit more to say about that later this week.
Did you see that Sean Diddy Combs' lawyer stepped down on Friday? Just one of his lawyers, Anthony Rico. Did you see that?
I did see it, but I didn't know why. It was. I think here's what I saw. Here's what I think I saw. Remembrance. We talked about that already.
Tell me.
What I think I saw was he put out like a 17-word explanation of why he was leaving, and that was it.
That's right. There was no affidavit, no evidence for why he couldn't continue in the case, just a short statement saying he would no longer be able to effectively serve. It's not going to delay the trial at all, which is currently scheduled to begin in May. And Diddy still has 5 other attorneys, including Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos. That's a familiar legal name. Where do I know the name Garagos?
Well, first, the name you remember is Mark Garagos.
Mark Garagos.
And Mark
That's
Garagos.
Right.
Mark Garagos did Susan McDougal back during the Clinton days.
Okay.
But more famously, he did Michael Jackson. And I think Tenny Garagos is Mark Garagos' daughter.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. The famous Garagos family.
A legal empire.
Yeah. A little vaccine talk. First of all, I am not opposed to all vaccines. So I don't know how this will be received. It's almost like everybody has had to run to the corner. You're either in the corner of all vaccines or you're in the corner of no vaccines. I'm in neither of those corners. I believe in some vaccines that are done in the natural way are different from the mRNA vaccines, which were the ones that were sort of forced on us rather quickly when it came to COVID. So, for example,
that gives us a little bit of insight into how you feel about some vaccines.
Well, no, but I would say I'm not against all vaccines.
No, I know.
I believe, and we talked about this before, not on the podcast. We talked before. mRNA is a cytogen, is a cellular. It makes changes at a cellular level, and there is much concern and a story coming up in a second from Yale University experts that might buffet that. But that's different from, for example, I had shingles last year, and let me tell you something. It
was really bad.
It was really, really bad. If you know a woman who has had shingles, you can ask her to compare the pain of shingles to any other pain she's ever experienced, including the pain of childbirth.
Shingles wins, doesn't it?
Shingles wins.
It's much more long.
It is
long lasting.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to make this all about me and my shingles, but 6 to 8 weeks that you have it. And then after that, like at this moment, and what are we, 5 months since I've had it? Something like that?
It's been a long time.
A long time. I still don't have feeling in my back.
All over your back?
Wherever it was, I have no feeling.
Man.
If I scratch my back, it's like I'm scratching it through a raincoat. I don't feel it. If you ran like a dripped water, I'd feel it on my shoulders, and then it would disappear from feeling, and then I would get it somewhere in the middle part of my back. So all that to say, I probably will get at some point the shingles vaccine. I don't know. It doesn't mean you'll never get shingles again. You don't want shingles. It is a very, very bad thing. Okay, that's my little shingles talk.
That's your PSA.
It's my PSA. Experts from Yale University have discovered an alarming syndrome that is linked to the mRNA COVID vaccines. The previously unknown condition has been dubbed post-vaccine syndrome, and it causes brain fog, dizziness. I think the correct pronunciation is tinnitus, but a lot of people say tinnitus.
Like a ringing in the ears?
A constant ringing in your ears, and exercise intolerance. Now, I have exercise intolerance, but I did not get the mRNA.
Can't blame it on that.
That's right. Some sufferers also show distinct biological changes, including differences, listen, in immune cells and the presence of coronavirus proteins in their blood years after taking the shot.
How many people, if you don't mind me asking, just for a few more details, how wide-ranging a study was this?
It's a Yale University study, a small study. They've not been published. They've not been peer-reviewed. The Yale experts emphasize the results are still a work in progress. But the findings from such a well-respected institution suggest that more research on post-vaccine syndrome is needed.
Okay.
I think that really is the point, is that some of the people that have always said, hey, there is a thing called post-vaccine syndrome, or they might have described it otherly, but that needs to be paid attention to. Yale researchers now say, in fact, yeah, that's right. The mRNA vaccines were made, of course, by Moderna and Pfizer, and estimated to save tens of millions of lives globally, including 3 million lives in the U.S. I've said before, I think mRNA, once it's properly vetted, mRNA will probably cure cancer, might cure AIDS. I have no idea. I think it has great potential. The problem many people had, that I had with it, was we were all a 200 million person forced study, essentially. So that's the part that anyway, the new study, again, not been peer-reviewed. It took samples from 42 people with post-vaccine syndrome, PVS, 22 people without it between December 2022 and November 2023, and they analyzed the patient's immune systems. Those with PVS, that post-vaccine syndrome, had different proportions of some immune cells. And this is what a lot of people had some concern about. And obviously, I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything. But a lot of the concern at the time was, it's like a light switch goes on when you involve the cells, and you can't turn it off. What is cytogenic, what is in your cells, stays in your cells. And that is a different kind of vaccine than the normal vaccine, where you take a little part of the inert virus and then you do it, and then you inject the inert virus, and then your body comes up with antibodies to fight that. And then when you're exposed to that, you have the antibodies to fight it.
Then a flu shot.
A normal flu shot is not what we're talking about. A normal shingles shot is not what we're talking about. A normal pneumonia shot is not what we're talking about. We're talking only about the mRNA. And again, I believe over time, mRNA is going to be a good thing. But according to Yale experts, this needs attention because there is something now called the post-vaccine syndrome, and it is, in their view, serious.
Do we get other shots that are mRNA?
No.
Okay.
No, we have never had an MO. That's the thing, is this was a brand new thing. There is nothing. In fact, in the future, when I've looked at, getting another vaccine for something else, I have wondered, I'm going to ask, is this mRNA? Or is this from the actual virus, an inert part of the virus, that has a culture and all the normal ways we do it? mRNA, the very first thing was the coronavirus vaccine. Ooh, it's time now for Scattershoot.
Let's do it.
Scattershoot, Wilder Show, Scattershoot. This is where we, it's it's like free-range children.
I like that. I like that.
You got to gather them a little bit. So we stay inside the pen. But we might be sort of all over the place, but that's okay.
We stay inside the boundaries.
The boundaries,
Mom
exactly.
said don't go beyond.
That's right.
This street or this street. We'll stay there, but
all right.
Who knows what might happen
in
between?
You never know.
How many times a week do you think the average couple fights about money?
Ooh,
and let me clarify.
A
fight is described as a heated argument. Bring to that whatever creative things or memories or experiences you have.
Okay. Are there still only 7 days in the week?
There are still only 7 days in a week.
I would say, is the answer a number of times or is it a number of days?
Well, it's a number of times per year, which then will pretty easily distill down into how many times.
I'm factoring in the period of silence that will follow.
This is not about that. But I see what you're saying. If there's a buffer of a couple of days on the end, that takes out a few days when you could get into another fight.
Yeah, or if you're not talking at all, you're not fighting about anything.
That's right.
I would say more than 100 days a year.
No, it's 58 times per year.
That's not bad.
So a little more than one time per year. Okay, let me say first, a little bit more than one time a week.
It's once a week, yeah.
So this is a survey of 2,000 Americans who are dating, engaged, or married, and 500 of them had partners in another country, not just partners who are from another country, but living in another country, either because of work or they are displaced for one reason or another. So that might have something to do with why some of these fights happen.
Well, then he could probably say, "But I thought it was in euros."
Well, you know what? That is actually one of the things that makes it harder to deal with spending and things like that, different currencies. Yeah. Okay, so younger couples, millennials, fight more about money than older couples, than baby boomers do. I think maybe the baby boomers are just tired of fighting. There's the younger couples, they got a little more energy. I think this suggests here, though, that younger couples have greater financial pressures than those who are more mature. That could be true too, but when I was reading this, I thought of something that I saw a while back, and tell me if this is your experience too. And I hate for everything to be about, we're older now and things were so much better when we were younger. Because I don't think that this is necessarily saying that. But I saw a thing that talked about how young people, millennials in particular, although they're not that much younger than we are, Gen Z maybe too, say, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. And then it was like a side-by-side thing, like a look at the things that we spent money on when we were their age and what they spend money on now. When we were that age, when you and I were that age, we were not buying any $5 or $6 cups of coffee.
No.
They just didn't exist, really. We were not going to boutique fitness classes at $35, $40 a pop. Again, it's not because we were so good. It's just they didn't exist.
No, the thing is, we didn't spend all of our money on cars. We didn't buy a $50,000 car. I mean, I didn't.
Yes.
I guess there were people that did, but when we were, just sort of getting our feet settled, we were scrambling, and you didn't spend money on stuff.
So I do kind of wonder if that when they talk about, that younger couples have greater financial pressures than those who are more mature, the specific things they fight about are different attitudes towards spending and saving and what counts as a necessity. So again, this was a survey of 2,000 Americans dating, engaged, or married. And they're, I don't know, maybe that's good news. Fighting about money as a couple just never goes out of style.
It seems to me, it's my observation. I have children that are now adults, but I see the kinds of money that young people are making, and I can't believe it.
Well,
I mean, I really can't. And you could say, well, yeah, but it's if you just take the dollar and you change it for the cost of living. I don't think so, though.
Why do you not think so? You think it's? I think
they're making good money. I mean, if they have a decent job, a lot of young people are making a lot of money. They're just spending it on stuff like what you're talking about.
And you think it equates to more than we were making at that age when you factor in things like inflation and how much things cost?
Absolutely. When I was, this got kind of personal, but when I was young, I was 25 years old. I made $18,000 a year. $18,000 a year. It's like nothing, right? It's very little bit of money.
I think that's about what I was making when I was 25.
I know. I'm just saying that's sort of the, I don't mean the watermark, but I mean that was pretty a standard thing. I mean, if you were making $30,000 in 1985. You were doing great.
Yeah. I've thought of stuff like that. I've thought about how well my kids are able to do in comparison to how much they make in comparison to how much I made when I was their age. And you mentioned, I don't know, maybe you didn't mention rent. I remember what we paid for rent in our first apartment, and what my kids pay for rent now is 3 or 4 times that. For places that are not necessarily, much better places to live or larger places to live. So I think at least that has kind of grown at the same pace.
No, I understand. I think sometimes the one chases the other. It's like, how much can we charge for rent? Well, how much are people making? How much should you be making? Well, how much is rent? I mean, it almost seems like it kind of goes together. It kind of notches up, and notches up. I look at what we spent for what the cost was for me to go to school at a private university.
Yeah.
And what it costs today. Well, we didn't have, our dorms looked like jails. I mean, we had no carpet anywhere. The everything was tile. You took a shower in a room that had 8 spigots in the wall and no cubbies to hide in. I mean, it was.
Did you really? You had like a big common shower, like a prison?
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about I've never been in prison, thankfully.
Well, I haven't either, but I've seen it on TV. No, I just know we at least had little privacy
girls.
stalls.
I mean, girls are different, but where I was, the floor was tile. Everything echoed. You had no carpet. You brought a rug in to put in your dorm room, in your 10 by 10 dorm room. You had a sink in your dorm room, but your toilets were there was for every wing of the hall. You had a common area for toilets, and it also had the showers.
Yeah.
And in the showers, there were 8 spigots, or whatever they call them, the things that come out of the top.
A little shower head.
And you stood. There was a little ante room where you drop your towel or whatever you got there with you.
Your little caddy. Did boys have little caddies with your name on them? And
some guys
all
did.
Decorated and stuff like that.
Yes, some guys did.
But
okay, I didn't.
Okay.
But you drop your towel or would put it on the peg. Put your towel on the peg or whatever. But then you go in there. It's just like it's like hey everybody. I mean, it was. So
here I am.
And all I mean to say is, we had no stations. We didn't have a Taco Bell station and a Burger King station. And, it was like, this is what we're feeding people today. If you're hungry, you will eat it. And I think the one thing that we always knew was we could always get a hamburger or always get pizza. But it wasn't like pizza in pizza. It was like prison pizza.
One of my kids went to a state school here in Texas, and I swear his dorm room looked exactly like my dorm room had looked 30 years before.
Yeah.
I'm quite certain nothing had been updated at this place since it had been built many, many, many years before.
Yeah.
And they also had a sink in the room, and they had to walk down the hall to use the bathroom or to take a shower. So I think a lot of that is not. It's not just because the accommodations are so much better. It's just so much more expensive.
I am not a fan of garage sales.
I'm not either.
I don't like to do them. I don't like to go to them, and it's okay if they're in my neighborhood. I understand people like to sell stuff and all that. I personally don't ever go to them.
I'm more. I can go to them. I've never been the kind of person that will start a Saturday morning by looking at, Facebook or Nextdoor or something like that and seeing where all the garage sales are and going from one to another. I've never done anything like that. I've been known to stop at a garage sale or two, but I have decided, like the last 3 garage sales I had, after every one I said, never
Never
again.
gonna do this again.
I'm never doing this again. It just seemed like it took so much time, so many hours to get ready for it, and then to do it, and then to be done with it and wrap it all up. And it seemed like a lot, like a whole lot of squeeze and not much juice.
As we've talked about before, I come from a very big family. My dad he was one of 7. My mom was one of 5. And so when it came to, furniture in your house, almost every single thing in our first house was something from a family.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine if you didn't have that. And then there were these people in the neighborhood that were, they didn't need the baby bed anymore. They didn't need the twin beds anymore. They didn't need the bunk beds anymore.
Well, I think people still do stuff like that.
Sure.
It's just maybe not so much garage sale and maybe a little bit more Facebook Marketplace
the new way,
or Craigslist
that.
Even. Do people still do that?
I think maybe.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that there was a garage sale in Minnesota where somebody had just gone and bought something there, and it turned out to be a gem.
Oh, okay. Like a work of art
It
or
was
something like that?
It was a painting that was bought at a garage sale in Minnesota. It turns out it is a previously unknown portrait by the Dutch artist Vincent van Gogh.
No way.
That is according to a newly published expert analysis. It was made by Van Gogh during his stay at a psychiatric hospital in the south of France.
Wow.
In 1889, experts commissioned by art research firm LMI Group International have now said that after analyzing the canvas weave, the paint pigment, and other characteristics, they are certain it was done by Van Gogh.
My goodness.
Is that fun? Isn't
That's
that fun?
so cool.
Here, take a look. I know look at it. That's it right there. It's got a three-quarter picture of him,
That's wild.
That's him painting himself. Isn't that something?
So cool.
There are other three-quarter facing, like not dead on and not a profile, but a three-quarter facing. He has several like that of himself. Think of the one that is most famous. It's like it doesn't show the side of his head that has no ear, but that is a three-quarter. It is 18 inches by 16 and a half inches.
That's good size.
It is a good size. And experts identified the painting as a Van Gogh. It was a 4-year process. The oil on canvas painting is a portrait. It's a portrait of a fisherman, has a white beard. He's smoking a pipe as he repairs his net.
Wow.
And one odd note is researchers found a hair embedded in the paint in the canvas, and they sent it to be analyzed. To see if it was perhaps, his. Anyway.
Well, I wonder how they would know that.
Is that weird? Efforts to match its DNA with descendants. That's how they do it.
Okay.
Descendants,
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
descendants.
that makes sense.
Descendants of Van Gogh were thwarted by its degraded state. So it did not yield anything. So there you go.
Okay. There's still something I want to know, though. Actually, a couple of things I want to know. how much? What was the price? Like whoever bought this, how much did they? What was the garage sale price for this Van Gogh? And then how much is it worth?
Yeah, save the best for last. This is the old touch of the master's hand, isn't it? This really is. It's like what is the money that's being asked for, but what is the real value?
Yeah.
What the cost of it? What someone paid for it at this Minnesota garage sale was $50.
$50.
That's what the person put on the tag was $50, and they probably were really happy to get $50.
So they must have, I mean, $50 is a lot for something you get at a garage sale. It must have been.
It's a real oil
lovely.
painting. It's a real oil painting, and it's good looking. It's a fisherman with a pipe, smoking a pipe as he fixes his net. I mean, it's the kind of thing I would see put in somebody's den or something. So they paid $50 for it. It is worth $15 million.
No
$15 million.
$15 million.
Isn't that something? The painting is entitled Elimar, Elimar.
Man, oh man.
Was since purchased by a 2016 antiques collector. But that is amazing. Maybe I should go to more garage sales.
I think maybe you should work that into your schedule.
But isn't this like that show that was on PBS or something? Everybody thinks they found some
Antiques
great
Roadshow.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you know what? If it just didn't have this, it'd be worth $1 trillion.
Right.
It has this, so it's worth nothing. Every person has something, and they're really excited, and they come in and they find one little thing that if it didn't have this or if it did have that, it'd be worth a lot, but really it's worth nothing. And what did you pay? Oh, I'm sorry about that. For people that go and they find the gems, and they are quite rare, obviously. And just one side note, you know that Van Gogh never made any money from any of his paintings during his life? Mm-hmm. Actually, he only sold one painting while he was alive. It was sold to his brother-in-law, who wanted to encourage Van Gogh to continue to paint. That is my little garage sale story.
That's your little garage sale good news. I have a memory of, I haven't spent that much time with your whole family, but I've seen you and your brothers do something a couple of times that I was actually reminded of when I was reading this next story. I guess where I've been with you, they've included a birthday celebration, because I've seen you and at least one of your brothers open a birthday card from your mom and read it out so nobody else can see what it says.
Correct.
And you read it out loud and say, happy birthday to my favorite son.
That's
Thanks
true.
so much, Mom. You then thereby dissing your brothers.
That's right.
Or my favorite child.
That's
so
right.
you can get your sister in
That's
there too.
correct. We do that.
And so the joke about that is we might always say, our parents have a favorite child, but they always say, and we say as parents, I don't have a favorite. I love all of you equally.
No, that's
Well,
right.
it turns out that parents really do have a favorite child.
Okay, first I'm going to go back to the thing real quick. We kind of expanded that thing. You do that thing where you finally read the card from your mom.
Yeah.
And you read it out loud and you say, I should have stopped after you or something.
No,
yeah.
it just gets
I know
gets cruel then.
It does. I remember one time where I opened a card and I had put a car key in it. And when I opened the car key fell out on the floor, and it seemed like I was getting a car key. I remember one time I had, $50, and I had gone to the store, and I'd gotten $51 bills. And when I opened the envelope, all this money fell on the floor.
Out of it.
So yeah, it's sort of became a thing.
So creative.
To compete. Yeah, we're
guess
very
so.
frustrated.
Well, nearly 20,000 participants were studied based on birth order, gender, and temperament. Favoritism here is defined as how much money parents spent on a child, as well as how much control they felt they needed to exert over that child. Now, this is going to be bad news for you in a couple of ways.
I'm already wondering who I don't want to listen to this podcast.
Well, okay. If parents do have a favorite child, It is the daughter, and if there is more than one daughter, it's the oldest daughter.
Well, that's bad news for you.
Well, no, that's really good news for me.
Well, yeah,
I am the oldest
I
daughter.
got you.
It's bad news for you because you're not the oldest daughter, and because it kind of wrecks your lovable rogue theory.
Yeah,
we've spent so many years talking about the lovable rogue, and this says that children who were well, maybe you should define what is the lovable
rogue. Let me do
a
couple of things. First of all, the baby of the family is not always the youngest in the family. And we can talk about that if you want to.
That's true, but that's not what that's.
I understand.
That doesn't have anything to do with who the favorite
I understand. Lovable rogue, my thought is, think of a kid, forget about your family. Think about a kid in class, in a school classroom. And the kid is, he makes, D's and C minuses. And then every now and then he makes like a B. And the teacher makes a big deal out of the B. And meanwhile, the kid that always makes A's and B's never gets a pat on the head. It's like the lovable rogue gets it's like, oh, we're so happy that you came up to this level. And I know about encouragement and all that. I understand.
A little bit like the prodigal son too, right? I mean, your
like
A's and your B's. I bet you.
That's true.
I shouldn't say you. I'm putting you into this story as though it's you who were making the A's and the B's and was then jealous of the kid who was making D's and then got a B and got his head patted for that.
Yeah, not really jealous. It just seemed like the one kid. And I'm talking now, not about in a family. I'm talking about in the classroom. One kid can suck all the oxygen out of the room. Yeah. And sometimes in real life in families, they suck the oxygen out by misbehaving. Yeah. And the ones that behave, there's no real oxygen left for those that are behaving. It's like, hey, thank you because we're really busy over here with this one.
Well, maybe there's no oxygen left for them, but they are the parents' favorite. Because this children who were responsible and organized were awarded with more favorable treatment.
I like this story.
Now, sadly, children who were not the favored child were more likely to fight anxiety and depression. So there's a give and a take here, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about any, my own family or my family I come from, but we talked about birth order. It's a fascinating thing. And the characteristics of those that are born first, those that are born middle child, those that are born in the latter part. And then if there's a gap, then that other one that's born, or if there's a gender change.
You have an oldest child all over again.
It's like an onless or like an only. So if you have let's say two kids and then like 10 years goes by and you have another kid, sort of a fall crop. Right. That one is really like an only child.
More like an only child.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, they are.
I remember, we did talk to Kevin Lehman, and then I remember studying that a little bit more later on. And really, I'm kind of having my mind blown, might be a little bit excessive, but I had two boys and then a girl, and the second boy really didn't fit like the middle child role, and I couldn't figure out why. And my daughter, her brothers would say maybe that she was like the baby of the family, but that was not really the way that I saw it. Yeah. And then that later Kevin Lehman study talked about, and she was only 3 years younger than the brother that was closest to her. But he said, when you have a third child or a fourth child that is a different gender than the others, it can be like having a firstborn all over again. Okay. And that was really what our experience was. Yeah.
Well, let's just put a bow on this. So you are the favorite child in your family. Based on the story, I know it's not true.
My parents' defense and my sister's defense, no, I was never treated I never.
That's what the favorites always say.
That I was the favorite. But yes, according to this study of 20,000 people,
it's got to be true.
Yeah, it's the daughter, and if there's more than one daughter, it's the oldest daughter. I am the oldest daughter.
Yeah. So my sister, and I would concede that. I mean, I would give that. I'm not saying that I feel she was treated this way or I was treated poorly. But it'd be okay with me if my sister was the favorite child. That's okay with me.
And all it really means here is that they might have spent a little bit more money on her, and that maybe she had a little bit more freedom than you guys had. And I think you can kind of explain that away too. By the time, like in your sister's case, you guys were all gone. They might have had a little bit more money to spend on her. Your parents might have, and also if you guys had been really responsible and they've not had a bad set a good example, and also not really given your parents a reason to believe that a kid was going to push boundaries or misbehave, then she might have had a little bit more freedom too.
Interesting. I was going to say, when you first talked about it, I thought the baby, the family. It seems to me the parents. You sort of learn I'll say this for me as a parent, you sort of learn your lessons on the first one, and you could maybe do things maybe a little differently on the second one, or different on the second one, or the third one, or the fourth one, or maybe you're just tired by the time you have a fourth one, and it's not that you don't care. Now, the one thing I can feel good about is there are more baby pictures of me as the firstborn than I think any other kid.
Good for you.
But that's natural, isn't it? That's
it
the way,
is natural.
Because you get so busy, you're just wrangling all stuff. Anyway, fascinating stuff. All right, that is Scattershoot. Later this week, Lauren, I think we're going to do a separate bonus issue for the Academy Awards.
Oh, yeah.
So a special bonus episode this week. And then, of course, every week, Tuesdays and Fridays, the Wilder Show podcast drops, 6 a.m. Central Time, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram, too. Like, rate, follow, subscribe, and share. Contact us at podcast@wildershow.com, or if you want to leave a voice message, a review, or anything else, you can do that at wildershow.com, and we'll see you next time.
do do